The Imbecile. The imbecile never spoke to anyone, whether children, adults, women, or men. His hair, which trailed down his neck and blended with his thick beard, made his face nearly featureless or almost so. He lived alone, and some people categorized him among those spiritual wanderers who had traversed the path of Sufism, renounced worldly life, and no longer sought it. That's what some of the residents believed, those who made the abandoned house their living space. Fugitives live ordinary lives, melting into society, blending in. For years, they carry their secrets, horrifying secrets, sleepless memories. They excel at disguise, assume false identities, and hide, until the day secrets are revealed, masks fall, and they are caught by justice. Fugitives, stories inspired by reality. The Imbecile. In small towns and especially villages, people tend to know each other well. Some even become central figures in their communities, and over time, these characters become the heroes of stories grandmothers pass on to grandchildren. Often, such stories end with the revelation of secrets no one could have imagined. This happened in a time before the internet and social media, when a criminal could vanish from sight and live a nearly normal life. On the outskirts of the ancient city of Béja in Tunisia, what was said to be a farm once run by French colonists, the elders remember a house that occupied part of that farm. According to the tale passed from mouth to ear, the French left and abandoned the house in the mid-1950s. At the time, people didn't care much about the fate of the departed French. Over the years, that little red-tiled dwelling became the image of a forsaken home, nearly lifeless. The children, now grown into elders, remember that ruined house and the stories woven around it and around that mysterious man who supposedly appeared there suddenly. When people talked about him, they spoke of the imbecile. In the surroundings of the abandoned house lived humble people. Tunisia had just emerged from colonial rule. In the larger cities, political debates and post-independence discussions were ongoing. The echoes of those debates faintly reached the small towns and margins. In the house of Ibn Maklouf, the grandmother Kamisa was a masterful storyteller. She captivated her grandchildren every evening with tales that stirred their imaginations. Among the many stories she told over the days was one touching on the life of the imbecile or something like it. The secret to the children's delight in the story of the imbecile was that he wasn't fictional. They often encountered him while playing in the alley or nearing the farm with the abandoned house where he stayed. That shaggy man never spoke to anyone, children or adults, women or men. His long, tangled hair blended with his beard, rendering him almost featureless. He lived alone and was classified by some as a spiritual wanderer, a man of mystical renunciation. Even grandmother Kamisa believed him to be one of those holy men said to possess miraculous powers. Her seriousness as she recounted her stories made them all believe her completely. One of her grandchildren, Abdallah, was perhaps the most captivated by her tales, so much so that as a grown man with children of his own, he would pass on those same stories in his family evenings. Abdallah once said he had to hide beneath his mother's robe when they passed by the ruined house on their way to visit relatives. The windows had no shutters, and the door had no panel. The building looked like it had staring eyes peeking through thick overgrown weeds, and the open door resembled a mouth agape in wonder. Abdallah recalled the first time he saw that house up close. It felt full of riddles and beings from unseen worlds. On that walk with his mother, he saw the imbecile up close for the first time. They avoided him, and he avoided them. He walked away, but his image stuck in young Abdallah's memory. He would encounter him several more times and eventually stop fearing him. He remembered how the man never parted with his coarse wool garment, once white, now stained by years of grime. The mystery surrounding the imbecile, estimated to be in his 50s or 60s at the time, matched the enigma of that ruined house. Some said a French settler built it as a secondary home, only to later turn it into his main residence to focus on farming. The elderly locals said the French family consisted of a couple and their only son, who didn't stay long before vanishing. Then the couple suddenly disappeared, and no one returned to the farm. They likely got rid of their cows before departing. The house and farm fell into neglect, and eventually, the man who would become the imbecile appeared. Among the strange tales not shared with children was one claiming the imbecile lived with a jinn who had married him or perhaps possessed him. Some stories told of strange sounds allegedly heard at night. Women and children believed such stories the most and feared both the man and the house. The imbecile wasn't from Béja or its surrounding villages. He was a stranger to the area, and thus, the truth of his story was unknown. Some claimed he came from Kairwa, others from Kasserine, or even Algeria. He would leave the house around mid-morning, roam the streets of the city, then return around noon, and again go out in the afternoon, often not returning until after dinner. His presence at night was marked by a flickering light in one of the windows. He never harmed anyone, though some teenagers and young men mocked him when they saw him. He posed no threat, only his appearance frightened children and women. He would avoid those who feared him and glance at the young men with anxious eyes. One such young man was Ghaleb bin Mahfouz, impulsive and in his 30s, who once declared to his close friends that he would storm the abandoned house. He seized an opportunity when the imbecile was away, entered through the open door, and ventured inside. Two of his friends watched from a distance. Seconds after he entered, they heard his scream, were overcome with terror, and fled. The next day, he told them what happened. He claimed that as soon as he entered a room, it lit up and a strange creature emerged from the wall or the light, he wasn't sure. It had the head of a horse and legs of a cow, he said. The creature grabbed him, and he lost consciousness. When he awoke, he was outside. His friends pretended to believe him, knowing he was lying. That was one of many tales spun around the house and the mysterious man. By the late 1960s, the imbecile had aged. His body grew frail, and he was seen less frequently. Some kind souls noticed his health was failing. After he went unseen for several days, one man visited the house and found him lying on a tattered mat. The visitor didn't expect him to speak, everyone had grown used to his silence. But that day, he chose to talk. He told the visitor that he sensed his end approaching and wanted to speak before passing. He said his name was Ghaleb bin Abed Al-Ma'louli, and the years he spent in and around that abandoned farm were the most significant of his life. He paused, and his visitor thought he might say no more. Then his frail voice resumed, "I'm not mad, nor imbecile. Circumstances forced me to live as you've known me." The visitor was astonished. The man spoke clearly and deliberately. "I came from Malula to here," he said. "I fled from the consequences of a crime I committed over 20 years ago." He paused again, coughed lightly, and sipped from a bottle of water handed to him. "I killed my uncle to take the land he inherited from my father." Tears welled in his eyes. He tried to suppress them and continued, "Yes, I killed him. And when I was about to bury the body, someone saw me. I feared he'd report me, I was sure he would. I tried to catch him, wounded him with the knife, but he escaped. I knew they'd come for me and kill me, so I fled. I wasn't prepared for it. I just ran. I don't know how many years passed, but I know they were many. People believe this house is haunted by jinn." He smirked. The visitor left, promising to return and keep the secret. The man didn't respond. The visitor left him alone just as he had always been. The next day, he returned and found that the imbecile had passed away, likely during the night. And so, the story of the imbecile ended, but people continued to pass down stories about him and that abandoned house for generations to come.